This is what self-love is. I love you even though you have made some mistakes. I love you even though you are angry at someone. I love you no matter what it is that you do, because you are having experiences and you are in a contrasting plane and you are human. And this is natural when you are human. And so once you really get this concept and you begin to love yourself, you kind of rise in this feeling of worthiness, this feeling of self-love. And when this happens, you become the perfect match to all that is.
Do you ever feel like you were meant to do something, but you can't quite figure out what? Have you felt out of alignment with your true purpose? You've come here to live a life of satisfaction and joy. You're here to live a life that was planned for you, by you. My next guest offers up some solutions along with some practical tools and ways of reframing our thoughts to get that alignment back together. Welcome to the Author Hour podcast. I'm your host, Hussein Al-Bayati, and I'm joined by author Robin Jelinek, who's here to talk about her new book called Choose Your Universe, an exercise in freedom. Let's flip through it. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Author Hour. I'm here with my friend Robin Jelinek, who today, she's launched this incredible book. It's called Choose Your Universe. You guys, I'm extremely excited because Robin has a beautiful, unique way of bringing this wisdom to us through her book. And, besides getting into the book, I just want to say, Robin, thank you for coming on the show and giving us your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Robin, I was telling you a little bit before we hit record that I fell in love with your book because it was so easy to get into and navigate. And you laid such a beautiful foundation for me to really kind of get to know you, get to know the work. But before we get into that, I'd love to give our listeners an idea of who you are, your personal background, perhaps where you grew up, and maybe a person that inspired you or an event that inspired you to be on the journey that you're on today.
Oh, okay. Well, I was originally born in Waukesha County in the little town of Merton, Wisconsin, and that's where my parents were from. My father was a water well driller and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And we lived there for a good portion of my life. And around the junior high age, we moved to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which is a northern small town where my father continued his well business there and where I actually met my husband. And we ended up also running a water well drilling business. I met my husband at the age of 13. That's another story all in itself. We're still together, coming on 50 years since the day that we met. And there's just a real knowing the first time that he walked in the room that this would be the person that I would end up with or that I'd be married to. In fact, it turned out to be true. So what can I tell you more about myself? I would say I really enjoyed being a mother. It was something that brought me a lot of pleasure. And I worked aside my husband in our business, so I was able to be at home with my kids or bring them with me to work, which I really appreciated. And did that for the period of about 20 years. And I would say probably before the kids were born, in my early 20s, I had a really interest in metaphysics. I was very interested in past lives, interested in mediumship, just about anything that I could get my hands on, I was reading, and it really resonated with me. And I would talk with my husband a lot about it, but at the time, it wasn't really the right time for him. He was busy running our business, and I had more time for such things than he did. And so it wasn't that he wasn't for it at all. It was just that it wasn't really good timing, so that we didn't spend a lot of time doing that together. And then I would say over 20 years of during this time of a lot of reading, a lot of study, a lot of different practices that I was interested in, I had what was called a Kundalini rising, which was really a pivotal moment in my life. And it's really where I experienced that everything that I had read about, everything that I had thought was true, was kind of confirmed to me in that experience. So I felt really lucky to have it, because I know that a lot of people read things and they believe them to be true, but to have a firsthand experience with something like that was otherworldly, that's the only way I can describe it, really laid the foundation for me to believe that I was definitely on the right trail. There's way more to life than what we originally believed that there is. And so that just sent me on another journey for the next 20 years, trying to figure out what this meant, why it happened to me. And I read just about every book that you could read on Kundalini energy, and I would deem myself pretty much an expert at it because not only have I experienced it, but I've also read a vast amount of material about it. So it's still going on to this point, but I think it had a lot to do with what occurred with me. I ended up being what is called a channeler. And I think that when you have a Kundalini awakening, not all channelers have one, but usually ones that have a Kundalini rising, it is something that generally following that in some period of time end up becoming channelers. And that's in fact what happened to me. So it's still continuing. There are lots of different things that occur with that. You have lots of kriyas, lots of bodily movements, lots of facial expressions. And the odd thing about it is they're all happening without your control. So what I learned by that experience was that we are all channelers, or you would not be in the body that you are in. There's a consciousness that's flowing through you that's operating this vehicle or this body that you're in. And so I just kind of temporarily step aside, and once in a while, different consciousnesses will use my body to communicate through. And it really feels quite natural. I know that sounds kind of out there. I'm not a woohoo person. If anyone that knows me knows that this is not the typical Robin, but it's where I find myself. So all I can tell you is that it's happening and it's true. And it's quite an experience to be going through.
Wow, I would love to know a little bit about your experience. And so this sort of shift that kind of occurred where you realized like, okay, I am now going to sort of, in a way, surrender to this process and become a channeler. Like, first of all, I want to know two things. How old were you when this sort of experience happened? And can you walk us a little bit, if I may ask,
Yes.
sort of what happened in that experience? And then we'll kind of go deeper from there.
Many people are very interested in Kundalini awakening because they find it to be a passageway or a key that unlocks the door to them. And so I find that that is a really concentrated area of interest when it comes to me when I talk with clients or even other people, because this is something that a lot of people want to achieve. However, they're very anxious about wanting it quickly. They want this to happen overnight. And what I would tell you in my experience, and I can't say it's true for everyone's, but I think it's true in many, is this can be a very many year process and even a lifetime to lifetime process. So it's not something that you're just going to wake up and it's going to be complete. Once the Kundalini rises, it has a lot of cleansing processes that it goes through, and it takes many years to do this. And there will be an upheaval of a lot of stored emotion, whether it be from this life or past lifetimes, that will come up to your cognition. Yeah. And so you'll have to let go of a lot of those things, not really worry about them so much or where they're coming from. It's just a process. And what's really happening is, even though those energy centers have been opened and that energy is on the move, now it is actually moving through the nadis or opening up all of the tiny little intricate centers of the body that are really where all the wisdom and knowledge is stored from the universe, basically. So it is not something that is very quick to have happen. It takes some time. And so that would give you a little bit of an idea of what's been going on with me. Now, I am at age 63 now. I had the Kundalini rising when I was 43 years old. And the thing to understand about this energy is that it is a consciousness that is separate from yours. It moves at its own rate, its own pace. It has its own idea, its own agenda. There's nothing you're going to do. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once it has escaped, it is out. Yes. And so this energy just starts running and coursing through your body, and it is quite a process. Now, there will be times when it'll be very active, where there will be lots of experiences, both out of body and in body. But then there will be periods of time where nothing will be happening at all. And humans will get a little anxious sometimes and want to speed that along or try to focus on it to get it moving again. But I would tell you that that's really not what's causing the movement. This energy has its own agenda, and it's based upon what's within you, the amount of time that it takes, what it has that you have stored within you as far as emotion or experiences from this life or past lifetimes. And so you just kind of have to give that up. You have to give up otherworldly experiences that are occurring, out of body experiences that will happen. You can't get attached to any of those things. You can't make them happen. There's nothing you're going to do about it. So you have to get very comfortable with the idea that this is going to be a process that does its own thing.
Wow, so powerful. I love that because it's sort of this relinquishing of everything we've been taught, right? I think for me personally, right, like everything that we've been taught about this world and the dynamics of it and, just this world in of itself and how it's constructed and designed and the laws and the policies and the rules, in a way, I feel like this place that you speak from is so powerful because it's not bound by any of these things. And it sounds like, I asked my father one time, like, what is the Most High? What is Allah? And it's just like, he said that you can't fathom it because it's so beyond our comprehension. But the way we can kind of get to it is, this idea of no time, space, or matter can bound it. And so, just our imagination, the average human being, it's hard to think outside of these elements, right? And so how you are kind of shaping this to be sounds like this energy emanates from this sort of space where it's not bound by anything. I think that's just really profound. In your book, you discuss the importance of self-love. And I think it's really amazing because I feel like the last few years, this idea of self-love, what that actually looks like, and all these things all these questions and conversations have come up, which is great. But how have you personally struggled with self-love, and what practices have you found to be effective in cultivating this idea of self-love?
Yes, that's a very good question. I would tell you that in the beginning on the spiritual journey, I felt as though there was something I had to achieve. There was some level of greatness, some level of perfection, of doing everything right, of not having any bad thoughts, of not having any negative experiences, of never getting irritated with other people. And so I really held this package of beliefs, and that's what they were, on how a spiritual person needed to be in order to be worthy. And I think the greatest gift in all of this, and what I'm really offering in this book, is none of that is true. You really are enough just as you are. You are human who is an experiencer, and you are using your tool for the experiences that you are having while you are here. There was never any agreement to doing them all right, that you would never make a mistake, or that you would always feel proud of everything that you were doing, but you were going to learn from it. That was the whole agreement that you had. And I think everybody that is listening knows they've done that somewhere along the line. And I think even in this metaphysical awakening that is happening at this time, people have adopted the belief that there is some form of perfection that one must have. You have to eat a certain way, you have to behave a certain way, you have to look a certain way in order for you to be worthy of the knowledge and wisdom that, by the way, is available to everyone at any time, anyone. And so the people that I call them people, I should say the entities that I channel, have really come here to teach people that this is not the case, that you are worthy just by the experiences you're having. And that the more that you can accept this truth, this is what self-love is. I love you, even though you have made some mistakes. I love you, even though you are angry at someone. I love you, no matter what it is that you do, because you are having experiences and you are in a contrasting plane and you are human. And this is natural when you are human. And so once you really get this concept and you begin to love yourself, you kind of rise in this feeling of worthiness, this feeling of self-love. And when this happens, you become the perfect match to all that is. And this is where all the good stuff is. This is where all the things are that you really want. They're the things that you have asked for, that you maybe sometimes thought that you couldn't get. Really, all that happened is you were not loving yourself, so you were not in the vibratory tone where you could actually match or align to that which you've become because of the experiences that you have contributed with your human. So I think for me, the number one, without question, benefit that I got and that I hope others will get from the book that has been written by the group that I channel is that living is enough to make you worthy. And that in that love of self, in that acceptance of self, what will happen is you're human, the behavior will change. The behavior will become what you have desired it to become just because of that wanting. And so it's a very natural unfolding that will occur once you give up this idea that somehow some have planted into you that you have to be the one as the human to change yourself, because really you are not doing it. It is the high part of you that does it, and it does it through your loving of yourself.
So powerful. Robin, you talk about Athena in your book and, this idea that you channel Athena, or rather she chooses your body. And forgive me for if I'm not using the correct language or vernacular. I'm just trying to articulate to the audience how this sort of process works between you and the group. But perhaps I'm assuming that Athena was one of the first sort of few entities that sort of started becoming the channelers that come through you. So can you tell us a little bit about that relationship in which you sort of needed to develop between you and Athena, or was there a relationship? Or was it
Yes.
sort of, yeah, can you please talk on that a little bit?
Absolutely. What I would say in response to that, just to give you a little bit of a background, there's nothing that is occurring in your life in the exchanges that you are having with those that you are close to that you are not the creator of, that you are not the drawer of or the picker of. And we know that for most people, I'm saying we, they're in here too, sorry, but I am telling you that many people don't have this awareness. They think that life is just happening to them. They think that somehow good things happen and bad things happen, but really you are the attractor or the caller of these things to yourself. So what really occurred for me was I was having a problem with confidence, kind of had it my whole life. I was a chubby girl as a child and got picked on a lot and really didn't fit in very well. And then even though I thinned out and have a very nice life and a husband, I kept that baggage or that noose around my neck. It stayed with me where I just felt at times that I couldn't feel as confident as I would like to. And one day I was sitting by myself and I asked myself, when am I going to get my confidence? I'm 63. It's got to be coming pretty soon. I'm really tired of not feeling as though I'm good enough, as though I can keep up or whatever it is that I'm doing where I lose it. And in that moment, I had a breath draw me and I knew it wasn't me. That's when it first happened. And the speaking in my head was the first signal. There was a talking that felt like it was not me. And the voice said, I am Athena. This is how it would feel to be in confidence. And I can honestly tell you, in that moment, that was the first time I ever really felt what it would feel like to be confident. And so from that point on, I kind of knew that something was happening. And I went out of town a week or two later. I did have a lot of mudras, which are automatic signing or things with my hands that would occur, very graceful mudras that I had no training in, no way that I could know how to do these things. And so a lot of this phenomena was occurring. I didn't know at the time that it was the group that was entering, but it actually was. So I would say a couple of weeks after that first breath came from Athena, I was out of town with my husband and my son, and I was talking to my son a little bit about what I had been experiencing, and right away I felt, as I talked about them, and they, by the way, are thought provoked. The minute I think about them, they start to talk. When I was thinking about them, he saw my body start to move, and he said, well, whoever you are, why don't you come out and talk? And this was the first time that they actually spoke. And so it was a pretty exciting night for us. I am fortunate that my husband is very open and my children are open, and I have a surrounding of family and people around me who are believing of what it is that I do. So I didn't have that comfort zone or that cushion, let's say that, yeah, to be able to let that out. So at first it was very difficult. It was strained. My voice box hurt a lot. I felt very like it was a big effort. It actually hurt in my voice box. But whatever occurred over the next 3 to 4 weeks, that went away and it started to smooth out. And there was a little turmoil in the beginning because there was more than one that was wanting to speak. And so they very quickly decided that they would go under Athena, who was the one that she claimed breathed me first. So she is the speaker of the house. But what they actually have told me that they do is they merge their consciousnesses together and they are all communicating. They are all adding wisdom and knowledge in the work that I do. And she is more the deliverer of that knowledge. That's kind of how it works. So really what happened, I believe that I drew to myself something I asked for. And a lot of humans don't really understand, but when you ask, the universe wants to deliver to you what it is you've asked for. And many people don't understand themselves. They don't understand when they think negatively, they think I have to stop doing it. I have to make that go away. That's a bad thing that I'm doing. I'm going to create things that I don't want to if I keep thinking that way. And what I have learned is that a lot of the emotions and a lot of the thoughts that you have coming to you are coming because you have asked. You have asked, why am I not getting the wife I want? Why am I not getting the job that I want? Where is the money that I want to have? And when you ask the universe, guess what? It's going to open you up raw. It's going to unload out to you, hey, you got some worries around money, or you don't think you look very good, or you don't think that you're the right age, or you're too old. It will actually start telling you the reasons why you don't have what it is you are asking for. But the human will think that they are thinking negatively, and this is why. They kind of have it backwards to some degree.
Yes, it's very powerful. And this idea that basically you're creating a mirror around you, and whatever you really believe, that's what the belief is going to come back as. And this idea that if we can change those thoughts, those experiences, instead of saying, I am broke, this is something I used to do, right? Growing up, I'm like, oh man, I'm so broke right now. It was saying, like, no, 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 I am wealthy. I'm actually healthy. And that's actually that's the wealthiest thing you can be, is being healthy, right? Like, and, of course, lots of people around me, my father, my mother, always reminding me that my health is my wealth. But also now from that space, I can generate the wealth that I want, what it means for me to be wealthy and successful, and sort of start thinking in that direction. And the universe started unfolding in that perception. That's where I was able to build a business and go on to college and all these beautiful things that I've been able to do, coming from a freaking refugee camp where I feel like your humanity is stripped away, right? Your dreams are stripped away. And so that recalibration definitely took me time. And I love that, because you talk about that in your chapter of manifestation, which you kind of, alluded to a little bit here. Can you maybe talk about one or two of the most common mistakes that people try to think about when people talk about manifesting their desires? What would you say the common mistakes are?
Oh, I would tell you the biggest mistake that they make is that they decide that they have to change themselves, that they have noticed something that they don't like. They start to focus on that thing that they think is preventative. And all you do when you focus on that thing is produce more of it, you see. You have to turn your attention to the desire that you have, the thing that you want to achieve, rather than focusing on the negative or something that you are feeling as a preventative. Many humans will be trying to suck up their thoughts or screening everything that they are thinking about and think that they are doing a good thing, only to find that the thoughts start multiplying, multiplying, multiplying. You have to understand how this universe works. There's no good and bad. There's no right and wrong. There's nobody out there that is determining to make you a victim or to harm or hurt you in any way. There is just you. And you see, there is just one thing that emanates all things. So as you are emanating, as you are looking at another and you see them in distaste or disgust or something that you are not liking, the universe now likens you to that. It simply is a duplicator of what it is that you are emitting. It is quite simple. But people have a real problem because they move into justification. They decide, hey, that guy did that crime, or he did that thing, or he is that loudmouth, or he is this or that, and it's justifiable. We're never going to tell you that it's not true, but what we are going to tell you is that as you focus on what you see that you are not in the liking of, you are now that very thing, you see. You get nowhere that way. The only way you can get anywhere is to emanate the feeling of what you want returned. If you are looking at something that you do not like and you feel you are justified in it, you're not getting anywhere.
This is so profound for me, because when I was reading this chapter, I thought a lot about the thoughts I've had in the past and where I am today, right? Like, I've always wanted to live in a warmer climate. Well, 2 years ago, my wife and I moved down to Arizona, right? I've always dreamt I want to buy a house. Like, that's something I want in my life. It's something like, I lived in a tent for 4 years.
Let's stop
How
there for
is,
a minute, 1 minute.
yeah,
Yes?
yeah.
Because we really want you to understand, in particular, living in that tent. What was born of that energy? Here's what a human doesn't understand. They want to deem everything as good and bad and as right and wrong, but they have no idea that everything that they live is for them. Everything that you are doing is building energy. Do you think that all that is does not know when one is living in a tent that they would really like to be in a warm place in a nice home? Of course it does. And so what happened really? You had a great desire because of the life that you lived, and all of that energy got packed away. It's yours. It's on your tab. Nobody's picking it up. Nobody can have it but you. But what happens is you decide to align. You get in that happy state, that satisfied state. That's the best place to be. And then all of the things that you have become by the experiences that you've had start to unfold in your experience in a positive way, you see. So there is no positive and negative. That ball of energy that was built by the life that you lived prior to getting to where you are is what supplied all that is with what you have.
Yeah, it is profound to make the connection between, I feel like when my father, used to say things like, no, whatever comes from the Most High is welcomed by me. And I just love that, because in those dark times, he didn't see what was happening, quote unquote, to us. He rather saw it happening for us. And he always saw this sort of beyond the horizon accumulation of what will come. Right. And, again, I was very young and he was deeply spiritual. And so For me, as I grew older, I started leaning into that spirituality and thinking like, everything's temporary and I'm going to live here as best I can. And the best way I can do that is through my art, is through writing, is through being in this moment with my wife, And so those are the things that started to accumulate. But, you talk about in chapter 5, and I really love this, it's perception. I think the one thing, growing up as a Middle Eastern kid in America, this one thing I always got from my peers was, man, you really helped change my perception. Whatever conversation we were talking about, I always thought that was such a gift that I was able to sort of carry this idea of perception. Can you talk about that? You talk about how when we change our perceptions to better align with our true nature, and perhaps maybe some practical tools that readers can use to shift their perspective. Perspective is huge for me because I feel like I've seen two different parts of the world, but some others have not.
Yes. When we or you adopt your Father's understanding that there is everything in life is unfolding for you, that you are not determining anything as good or bad or positive or negative, and you are willing to live through these experiences and you become a master. And what is a master? A master is one who feels. You're going to feel what it's like to be a human. That's never going away. You're going to have negative emotions. You're going to lose people. You're going to go through experiences that are both pleasant and unpleasant. But as a master, you start to realize, hey, I am an emanator, and what I emanate is what will be returned on. So very quickly, you will decide how you're going to choose to feel around an experience in your conscious moment, your now moment, as opposed to unconsciously letting your life unfold based upon what has been lived in the past before you had this knowledge or wisdom. You see, many humans are living their lives and they are unconscious. And what is unconscious? It's whenever you go into an emotive state, you are unconscious. Did you know that? And as you are unconscious, the life just starts automatically unfolding, sometimes in very unpleasant ways, because you're stuck in an emotive state and you have no idea that your emanation is calling more of that to you, you see. But when you get in the now moment and you start to be conscious of how you're determining, what do I want from this experience? What do I really, it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. I'm willing to admit that. But what is it that I do want because of it? It is for you to form a preference. Once you have formed the preference, now you go with that. How would it feel to have that preference? How would I like it if that actually happened and I could feel that way about it? And you start to be very grateful for the experiences that you have deemed positive or negative, and you start to just use them or leverage them so that you can get the best for yourself. There's no way that you are ever going to get the best for yourself if you continue to live unconsciously. And by unconsciously, we mean flying off into emotive states and not really paying attention to what they were born of or what it is that you want because of the experience that you're having.
Robin, in the book, you encourage readers to listen to their guidance system. I think that's one of the most profound things that I, heavily like just resonated deeply with me. But Dad always used to say, there's a compass inside of you, and the more you listen to it, the more you, through prayer, right? Calls it communing, right? It's like the more you commune, the clearer that path for that navigation to really take place. And everywhere you go, there's a mission that you're going to be a part of in an adventure, and you're going to unfold. And so this idea that where you're going is actually dictated by how much you know yourself. And I just, as a teenager, that was really hard to comprehend. And as I got older, it made a little bit more sense. And as I have conversations like this with the many people's mentors, coaches that I've had in the past, I felt more trusting of that guidance system inside of me. And when you alluded to that, I was like, did she talk to my dad? Like, what happened here? And I love that because, you say that when you know yourself, you know everything, you know everyone else, right? In a way. So I love this. Can we talk about this a little bit? How can readers recognize and connect with their inner guidance? And what advice would you give?
The most important thing to understand about the guidance system is that it is always between you and you. You can take everybody else out of the equation because they are just mirrors or more opportunities, let's use that term, for you to look within yourself to see why it is you are experiencing what it is you are experiencing, you see. And when we say between you and you, we mean many humans will decide that someone has irritated them, someone has caused them in some way to feel negative, and they want to put the blame onto someone else. But really what is being responded to by the high part of you to you is that the way you're feeling and thinking right now is moving away from your source. It's not going to provide you with what it is you're calling for if you continue to emanate that way, you see. And what does it mean? Does it mean that the person that you are in interaction with didn't do anything wrong, or that they are not a good person or a bad person? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means it doesn't matter. See, none of that matters. The master realizes, I'm not going to argue with anyone. I'm not giving away my gold to anyone. I'm keeping it for myself, because the minute I decide to judge another person as being bad, even if they are, we're not saying that they're not, the minute that you do that, you become the emanator of it. You become the same thing, you see. And now you are getting this attracted to yourself. So the guided system, the most important thing for you to understand is that communication is for you, about you, to you, from you. It has nothing to do. You can immediately, when you fly off the handle, when something happens and you are thrown off your equilibrium, you can immediately take the players or the actors right out of the picture. They're not a part of it. You have to know that the way you have chosen to move or think in that moment, in that interaction, and by the way, they wouldn't be there if you were not a match to it. That is why they are mirrored to you anyway. But you have to decide in that moment, the minute the controversy starts, I'm emanating something in the way that I'm feeling. Do I want that back? Is this something I would like to have produced or coming back to me? And so after a while, when you become this master that we have talked about, and you really get to understand this communication, this guidance system between you and the intricateness of it and the way that it is working for you in support of you, that horrible negative feeling you get when you are in conflict is because of conflict, period. It's not because the conflict is true or not true. It's because you are now same. As you push against or oppose something, you are in the same energy of the one pushing and opposing. And so you have to get this understanding of the guidance system and know that your high self is always communicating to you about you and the way that you are thinking and feeling about everything you're dealing with in every second, in every moment. It never leaves you. It is the most perfect, intricate, connected thing that you can ever imagine.
Robin, I have to ask this because I feel like, putting a book together is one of those things for human being. It's a journey in of itself, right? And sometimes it's a year long, sometimes it's a few years long. But what was your favorite part of pulling this book together?
Realizing I could do it. I'm not a writer. I wouldn't claim to be. And I know it's really funny because I feel like in this process, I've learned that this journey that you're on is really magical and surprising and fun when you allow it to be. And I remember being younger, and I remember trying to sit down and write a book and think, oh, I think I'm going to write a book. But I had nothing to say. It just wouldn't come to me. And I think even back then, something in me, this was coming. This unfolding was coming. And so once the channeling thing happened, and I decided, maybe we should write a book about this. And my husband said, well, how do we do that? And so I just sat down and I asked, and all of a sudden, my hands just started going. And I had no idea that I could channel through typing, because when I channel, I always have my eyes closed and the words just flow out effortlessly for me. But I had never known that they would channel a book. And I simply sit down and say, well, what's this chapter going to be about? And they'll say, well, let's title it this. And then I'll say in the morning, I'm ready for a download for the book, and through it comes. And so I think that it's important to make the note here that there are many people who are doing this, who are not channeling a group like I am, but they have a flow, a connection to themselves that comes through in this way that makes it effortless, that makes it feel easy, that it just flows. I think people have it with music, they have it with their art, and they don't recognize it. They think, oh, this is no big deal. And the most important thing I would tell you is, if you knew how natural this felt, if you knew how effortless it is and how effortless life is supposed to be, there's like this flow going on, this natural thing, just like fish that swim upstream at a certain time of year. Nobody goes and tells them all, hey, it's time to get going upstream. They just go. It just innately happens. And the only reason your life isn't unfolding the way that you want it to is because you don't have the understanding that it can. Once you get this real connection to yourself and you grasp this understanding that to get into the flow state, what is that? It's like when you get into this positive state where you're just looking at things that you're admiring and you're loving life and loving the people that you're with, and you're letting go of conflict and you're deciding, they can be right. It doesn't matter. Does it really matter? It doesn't. And so you start to kind of let go of all of these things. And what happens is you drop into this stream, and that's what it is. It's a stream of consciousness, a flow where things just drop on your lap and you're just picking, I like that, I like this, that would be great, let's have that. And no more are you struggling, no more are you going out, there's nothing to do. It just is like this automatic, very natural state that one gets into, and you start to realize that your life it's already there, it's already laid out, and all you have to do is stop trying to control it, stop opposing people, stop arguing about things, stop looking at things that you don't like, stop repeating bad news. And when you do that, you drop into a stream of consciousness, of possibility, of magic, and a wonderful life.
Robin, I am certainly blown away. I am literally going to take the rest of the day to finish up your book. And not only that, but honestly, as I hear you speak, how would I even say this? I am inspired to lay out my prayer rug and just sit there and commune and do my meditation, because, it's one of these topics that I feel, like you said earlier, it's like this idea of just flowing down river. And the more aligned I feel, and I can speak from my personal experience, the more aligned I feel in the ways that I want to just allow myself, give myself permission. I didn't paint for 12, 14 years. I stopped painting during college and I just picked it back up this last year. And painting is a huge visceral, my father painted his whole life. My great grandfather was an artist. This identity of artistry and poetry is just huge in my lineage. And the more I've leaned into that in the last, I would say, year and a half, 2 years, I feel more of myself than I ever have. And so your work, for me, just resonates deeply with this sort of new trajectory and just giving this idea of giving myself permission. And it's so beautiful that you speak just in the sense of when I sit down and I just let go and I say, you know what, there is no expectation. I'm just here to write because I enjoy this process. Oh my God, those days, that writing, it's just smooth. I don't care if it's good or not. It just comes out though. But the times where I'm like, oh, this needs to be good, and what if so-and-so sees it, and the ego comes into play, it's eliminated. I don't even want to write. I'd rather do the dishes. You know what I mean? And so that resistance, so it's beautiful that you really talk about these moments in your experiences and how they can benefit the reader. It's really profound. I have one last question for you and you're off the hook. Robin, one of your readers picks up your book and begins to read through it like I have. What do you hope they feel after putting it down?
I hope they are inspired to get the life that they were meant to get. Some humans think they have to suffer in order to do that, and sometimes that happens. But we want you to know that nothing is for nothing, and that every bit of energy that you are expending as you are living as a human is being tallied, it's being kept, it's not for nothing. It's available to you. It is in your universe. We tell humans all the time, you have the mass consciousness, the universe of thought, of everyone's thoughts. You can follow that if you want to. You can decide to listen to all the studies and all your news and join the masses in what it is that they believe, and that can become part of your experience. Or you can decide that you have a universe that is you, and you are the one that deposits in that universe by your focus, what you choose to think about, what you choose to view, who you choose to spend your time with. All of these things are your choice as a sovereign being. And our biggest advice to you would be to know that you are a sovereign creator, individual, all on your own. And you have the ability to make a beautiful life for yourself all by yourself. You don't have to join the masses out of fear. What is fear? Someone asked us that question the other day. Fear is feeling out of control. That's the best way we would describe fear. And once you eliminate that fallacy, that you know you are the picker, the chooser, the sovereign creator, you are the one that decides, and you are in control. Never again will you be fearful once you adopt this way of living.
So powerful, Robin. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your experiences with me and our audience as well. The book is called Choose Your Universe, an exercise in freedom. Besides checking out the book on Amazon, where can people find you and perhaps connect with you, Robin?
Yes, I have a podcast under Athena in Truth. I do that for free, and a lot of listeners really enjoy that from day to day, depending on what I'm experiencing. Different situations come up, we address them on there. I also do YouTube once or twice a week, and I do channeling with other channelers. And then I also do separate channels with Athena. They're about 45 minutes to an hour apiece. People really enjoy those. And I do private sessions for people, and you can find me at www.athenaintruth.com. And there is a scheduling device on there that you can make appointments for that if you are looking for a session.
Beautiful. Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Athena, thank you as well. Thank you for your wisdom today, your knowledge, your expertise, your way of words, and certainly your spirit. I'm profoundly grateful. And Robin, I know we'll be in touch. I'll be reaching out and saying hello in other ways. So thank you again, Robin. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Author Hour. You can find Choose Your Universe, an exercise in freedom, right now on Amazon. For more Author Hour episodes, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite subscription service. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same place, different author.